Imagine you're on a long flight, almost 11 hours in. You're seated, eating breakfast. You're not buckled because you want to be comfortable. When suddenly, the whole plane drops. It's like that feeling going down the steep part of a roller coaster. Everything just kind of goes up into your throat. Except it's worse than that because the drop is so severe and so sudden, your entire body flies up and hits the ceiling. And with such force, your head cracks the ceiling right open. One person on board the plane dies. Dozens more are hurt. And now you're wondering, what just happened? And how do I get off?
One person has been killed and several people injured on Singapore Airlines Flight 321.
The airline says the plane from London was carrying 229 passengers and crew.
The plane was met by emergency crews who immediately began assessing injuries.
Everything I just said just happened. I'll show you how. So through a tracking site called Flight Radar 24, we can see the world's air traffic in real time. Isolating the one flight in question, we can start to recreate what happened. Singapore Airlines Flight 321 was leaving London just after 10:30 p.m. local time. It should have arrived in Singapore about 12 or 13 hours later, but right here in its journey is where passengers feel shaking at first. Then, that sudden drop.
It's very quick and then very short happen. It's not long way to going down, very short.
And I've since heard accounts from passengers speaking to the BBC, speaking to Reuters, that coffee was everywhere, people were screaming. Suddenly, the aircraft starts tilting up and there was shaking. So I started bracing for what was happening, and very suddenly there was a very dramatic drop. So everyone seated and not wearing a seatbelt was launched immediately into the ceiling.
We are diverting to Bangkok.
That's the voice of the pilot, according to this post on X, announcing a diversion to Bangkok. And just look at that ceiling. That's a big dent in the luggage bin overhead. According to the airline, 18 people were taken to hospital. Dozens more had less severe injuries, cuts to the head, apparently the most common one. But someone did die.
Have a heart attack problem. So maybe he's have a heart attack on plane or not. But after the doctor have to investigate his body.
He was a 73-year-old British man. We won't know until we see the results of an autopsy, whether it was heart failure or traumatic injury that killed him. But there is still one other big question we haven't addressed. Maybe not what happened, but what caused this to happen? Even if deaths from turbulence are extremely rare, turbulence itself is incredibly common. We can also generally spot it from pretty far away. Pilots can see clouds shifting. They can even see rain in the distance moving in these telltale ways that let them know that there's a patch of swirling, disturbed air up ahead. And we have sophisticated weather instruments that can notice all of these things as well. But there's a kind of turbulence that's invisible to the naked eye.
What Singapore Airlines experienced this morning is something the industry calls clear air turbulence.
Clear air turbulence is something you don't really notice until it's too late. What causes clear air turbulence? Well, it's thought to have a great deal to do with jet streams, these narrow bands of air that whip around our planet at hundreds of kilometers per hour. When different air masses slam into other masses, you get turbulence. But without clouds, you don't see any of it happening. It's invisible.
During a clear air turbulence event such as this one, the airplane will pitch, turn, yaw, and it'll bounce up and down, and the airplane will fall. And when it falls, everything that's not tied down will bounce, will move from the floor, from the trays, from the seats.
So imagine different air masses colliding together, some hot, some cold, and if an airplane is enveloped in a cold air mass that suddenly sinks, the plane sinks right along with it. And here's the kicker. There are studies out there that predict climate change is causing more and more of these types of air incidents as the air continues to warm, causing more turbulence with jet streams. One study looked at 4 decades worth of clear air turbulence, saw a significant increase over that period, and projects we'll see more still in the coming decades.
In my opinion, we'll have more of these as we experience more and more climate change. Keep that seatbelt on. It's there for a reason.
According to the National Transportation Safety Board in the US, when there are injuries on a plane, turbulence is by far the likeliest cause. This incident on Singapore Air was the worst we've seen in a long time, but it may not be the last.